meeting today, we're going to cover, in the same sort of order of showing, the dashboards, the clinical dashboards over the last few meetings. This will be the last session where we cover the last two dashboards, the cervical screening and bowel screening dashboard, which was included in the set of dashboards that was shared as potential dashboards for rolling out to the whole of London. Other than that, I'm also going to be talking about the metadata gateway. So for all those who have got a research interest in this call, plus also the BI, colleagues on the call, there is a concept called a metadata gateway that Health Data Research UK, HDR UK, have established. And there is a mandatory requirement for all SDEs to start flowing data to that gateway, which happens via the London Analytics platform. So I'll be talking about that. And thanks, Taryn, for joining. Taryn will be actually showing you the gateway. So it's not just a few slides we will talk through. You can actually see the gateway as well and in practice. So I'll start, my presentation on the metadata gateway. But before I do that, a quick reminder to people about the London Analytics platform YouTube channel. I've given the link here in the agenda again. So we will continue to upload all of the, dashboard videos that we have shown you in the show and tell session. And we will also be sharing the user guide and any other support collateral on each of those dashboards to help you review these dashboards within your own ICS. I am really keen to get some feedback. There isn't really much of a feedback we have had from any of the ICS. So the next show and tell in Feb, I want to put 15 minutes and go around each ICS to get a little bit of a feedback so that, I can understand what you're doing to review these dashboards and if there is any other support you would like, any other information you would like. Do you want a dedicated session or anything? So just giving you a heads up that that's what I'm looking for. But we will also confirm that as we close the meeting as an action. Right. If there is no further questions on that, I will move on to the gateway update. I've got a few slides I'll start with, and then I'll pass on to Taryn to share her screen. So Taryn, thank you. So hopefully you can see my screen. So I just wanted to start by calling out what is a gateway for people who are not, familiar with this gateway. I keep talking about this in, various forums, so some of you would have heard me talk about this. So what is a gateway? Gateway is basically like a front door that is made available to researchers hosted by HDR UK. And the whole purpose of that is for researchers to see the metadata held by each of the SDEs, for them to submit inquiries and requests to custodians. So we are all called data custodians for us to receive that, inquiries and requests and ensure that, the data access process is followed in line with the data custodians, process before the access to the data is provided to the research. Because when a researcher comes in and wants to answer a research question, they don't even know whether we have the data. So without, having access to the metadata, they can't even figure out and, conduct a basic feasibility to work out whether we have the data they're looking for or not. So that's the whole purpose of this. There was a gateway that was established by HDR UK years ago, around 2020, I would say, about 4 years ago. But there were lots of issues with that gateway in terms of the usability and through feedback from both researchers and data custodians, HDR UK over the last 12 months have, taken all those feedback and redeveloped the gateway to what they are now calling as the enhanced gateway. If I move into my next screen, so as part of that enhancement, what is coming into play is basically HDR UK will not only present the metadata in the front end, they're also looking at how the researcher can make a data access request and how we could, compile a whole list of data use, as part of a register within the front end as well. So this way, a researcher doesn't have to keep going in and out. It becomes like a single stop shop for them to see what metadata is there, make their data access request, and also be able to see what data uses that each of the data set have got, including any publications that have been made available on that data. And they've also, worked a lot on the search capabilities. So I've put like a few screenshots. So you can see here what they have done with the search capabilities. We had search even with the previous gateway, but this time what they have done is have, a bit of fuzzy matching, which allows even misspelled name to be found. So you can see here in the, video I'm playing, Asmus misspelled, but still there is, fuzzy matching in the back end, which allows the researchers to find, any instances of asthma data set within the metadata gateway. The other thing they have done is ontology mapping. So if somebody is looking for, a certain disease and it's got, an ontology in the back end, it is not necessarily searching just for Crohn's disease in this instance. It is able to relate Crohn's disease to inflammatory bowel. So it is able to make that connection because there is, the connecting ontology mapping in the backend. And finally, the search is able to like take combined terms now rather than a single word. So if you were to like, do two words like this, pregnancy and COVID, it looks for, those data sets that has both of those, words. So it has the ability to conduct complex searches, enabling the best match to be found. So these are all some of the improvements they have made based on the researchers' feedback. There's all sorts of benefits to us data custodians because we are able to get a lot more interest from researchers as the front end becomes much easier for researchers to use. We get they request through the front end, and it allows us to interact with all of the requests through in a single forum rather than us getting like inquiries and us having to work through those inquiries and address all of the questions researchers have got. And they have also looked at the user interface because the user interface that was previously available in the gateway was quite clunky, not easy to use. Researchers were not really able to understand where to look for what. Whereas now there is a real clear user interface for both researchers as well as data custodians. So for us, we have an area where we know exactly where to upload our metadata, where to upload our publication, where to upload our analysis scripts and software. So it's very easy to find, very easy to use, and there is clear documented advice, guidance, and training available on how to utilize this product. Likewise, for researchers, they are able to search for data custodians, search for data sets in multiple different ways and it's so intuitive and easy for them to use. Finally, there is improved signposting to data resource. So if you take this as an example, I've put one data set as an example. This is not really publicized as a London SDE resource, but just to give us an example, there is a resource called Neonatal Research Dataset, which Imperial College hosts. So you can see as a one-stop shop, what is a data set, who's the data custodian, what data they hold, and what are the sort of research projects, publications that have been done on that data set. And you can you can also go into the analysis scripts and software to see some of the scripts that has been used. So really helps that collaborative working between researchers. So I've talked about this, and finally, I wanted to say they have also developed a lot of automation in this new product. So previously it was quite manual, and it was manually intensive for us to manage and maintain this metadata gateway. But now HDI UK has enabled API connectivity. So we are able to send our metadata via an API to HDI UK, which updates our metadata catalog in the gateway, which makes life very, very simple. So that's one of the things we have done in London SDE within the lab team to engage with a company called Metadata Works to help us develop the API and connect it back to the gateway to achieve the automation. I think, I will stop there. But, before I hand over to Taryn, I wanted to say that, we have got 24 data sets now live and available within the gateway. And we are in the process of updating all of the publications that have been done on those data set. And we have hundreds and hundreds of publication. I was just discussing this with Taryn last week, where, Taryn is helping to like put them together into like a clear category list on, which publication uses which data sets. And then once all of that, mapping is done, she's going to go and upload it onto the gateway. And we were just talking to HDR UK about this on Friday to say that's our plan, and we will be doing it over the coming month. We also have a lot of like analysis scripts and software entities we have uploaded to these data set, and also have a data use register that we are maintaining for all of the research that has been approved. So the data use register is held within the Discover Now website at the moment. But again, there's conversation that's going on with the London SDE program and the comms team to see how we can move that register into the One London website. So whilst that discussion is ongoing, we are continuing to maintain the data use register, because every month we have nearly 10, 15 project that gets approved, and we need to maintain it for FOI and to show to the national team that, we are carrying out so many research projects. The national team also asked for a monthly update on how many projects we are conducting, and we use this register to complete all of those returns for the national team. So those are the things I wanted to call out really quickly. But Taryn, can I hand over to you at this point in time?
Sure. Thanks, Kavitha.
So yeah, Taryn is bringing the actual gateway. So this is the gateway. So
yeah, so this is the live gateway at present. So if we wanted to see London SDE, we'd go to data custodians, as Kavitha mentioned, and we'd search for London. And there you can see the SDE comes up. If I just take you to the landing page, so basically you have a short introduction on the SDE. It lists then all our data sets, as Kavitha mentioned, as well as we have two collections, the Discover Now Hub as well as London SDE. So we can assign different data sets to different collections if we wanted to, but at present they do match because all our data sets would be available on both. Once again, Kavitha did mention this already, the analysis scripts and software is a new enhancement. It's where you're allowed to add visualizations such as dashboards, etc. You can add it with a link to your dashboards, as well as link any of these scripts or software also to your data sets themselves. So if researchers come in, they can see what's actually been produced by using the data sets that we have available. Same with the software. We have tools or any software that's used, perhaps if machine learning is used, or AI, or Azure, Snowflake. We can add that software and tag it to the data set as required. So that allows researchers to get a bit more information on what we have used. The data uses, as mentioned, we are busy updating those at present. But there is actually a template now that allows you to link all the data uses, any projects you've done, to link it to the individual data sets that get used. And that way researchers are able to see what's being used for those as well. And the last bit is the publication, which we are still trying to marry up with the data sets, as mentioned with Kavitha, but we will have loads more publications showing. So any publications that have come from projects, we will then have linked to the data sets as well. I think I'll show you an example. I know Kavitha showed an example, but I'll show you an example of a live one of the data sets. So if I go to admitted patient care, it's a lot more visual now, the display of the enhanced gateway, which is quite nice. It shows the population size, how many years worth of data you have, the geographic coverage. The spider diagram is quite good too, because the data variables, for instance, takes you directly to the structural metadata. And if they wanted to go back and check more information on us as a data custodian, they can link straight through this as well. Once again, the publications are visible against each data set, and the analysis scripts and software, anything that we've used with that data set. The rest of the information below, like the descriptions, etc., were on the old gateway. So none of this has been enhanced at present. It's only the display on top.
Yeah, but you can see it basically covers like, the provenance and the structural metadata in terms of when it was last updated, what is the latency of the data set, um, and the coverage, what geography it covers, is it for one particular borough, one particular region, one particular ICS in a region. So it starts to talk about the coverage, how people can access it. So if you
Yeah.
go to like, accessibility data access request, we have email ID. We are asked to like, make a generic email ID available to the researchers for them to contact us if they want to like make a access request. And either they can use that email ID or they can click on that, link that Taryn is she's pointing to.
Yeah, there's the general inquiry, which is just any general questions on the data sets. But then you also have a feasibility inquiry, which they'll ask more questions about the actual project that you're looking to do and where funding would be coming from. And it covers a bit more inquiries on the projects. And then submit an application as if they're actually going through the access request through HDR UK. There's also an option for a researcher to download data, whether it be the full metadata as listed below here, or the observations to see the number counts, or the structural metadata. So that's provided for each data set as well.
Yeah. So the structural metadata is a bit like your data dictionary. And what the full metadata is, adding a bit more content to that data dictionary to cover the provenance and, publications and coverage, everything else. In terms of make a general inquiry, it could just be, how do we do our data access? Is there a data access form? Is there like a cost to our access? All of those will be general inquiry. A feasibility inquiry is more of them trying to understand whether we have enough data for their research. So where they get into a bit more detail of, I'm doing a research on diabetes, and I'm looking for the cohort size of diabetic patients split by age or gender or something like that. So it's more of trying getting an understanding of whether we have the right information for them to fulfill their research request. Though that's what is sent as part of the feasibility inquiry before they make a full application. So yeah, that's really it. And just to call out, yes, we have like 24, 25 data sets here. You will note that this is only Northwest London data. That's because we don't have London-wide data in London Analytics platform at the moment. We have just Northwest London data, and that Northwest London data is what we have published here because we are being monitored on publishing our metadata into this gateway. As more data comes from all your ICSs, we will start to incorporate that and call out the increased size of these data sets. Or if there is new data set that's coming, then we will add new data set. But we all know that what we are working on is primary care data, the acute commissioning data set, mental health service data set, and community service data set. So that's what we will be focusing on. In this, set of tables, we actually don't have mental health service data set and community service data set because that's something that does not exist for Northwest London in a London Analytics platform. Northwest London has got a bespoke data set from our providers directly, which is what we have published here. But as the national data comes, we will make that available here. Taryn, anything else we have missed to call out?
I think the only other thing would be the co-op discovery, if you want to mention that, if we can mention that. It's just that's a new enhancement.
Yeah, do you want to go in there and talk about it briefly? Yeah.
Yeah. So this tool basically it just allows researchers to get a sense of the size of the population which could be used by filtering for their research criteria. So what it actually happens is, say now they want to look like if it's diabetic patients between age of 25 to 45, it'll send a real-time query across to pseudonymized data sets, and then it'll be across multiple data custodians as well. Then the query will return a count of the individual so that the researcher can get an idea of, how much of the population actually have that criteria and if they can use the data for their research. But just to mention that the data has to be OMOPed to be used, so that it can be compared across data custodians, all data custodians. So yeah.
Yeah. Taryn, just one more thing on the gateway, if you could show, but before,
Yeah.
On the search, or, when a researcher is able to submit a request to us, are you able
Mm-hmm.
to do that? Or I don't know, you're set up as a data custodian, aren't you?
Sorry, do you mean to apply, like when I'm in the data set?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just.
So when they go in and send a request,
Make a general
yeah,
inquiry, or would you like me to go into the other ones that we had previously, Kavitha?
yeah, general inquiry. Yeah. So if, so we're talking about this general inquiry. What you can see here is, basically when Taryn clicks on it, it takes it to, this small page where, she can start to create that, a general inquiry, put the contact, put the inquiry and send message. Where she clicks send message, it will send to the generic email that we have included as part of the London SDE. That's what will happen. But the intention of the national team is that a researcher could actually send an inquiry to multiple SDEs at the same time. So I think if you do the feasibility inquiry, I think you can send it to multiple SDEs, Taryn, if you go back, where, it says applicant organization, they can
I'll
put
just have to go into a
London
data set.
SDE and Oxford or Cambridge, like Thames Valley SDE or East of England SDE, and the same inquiry will go to all the three of us. So that's really the intention of what national team is trying to achieve here, where they want researchers to not, be wasting time in trying to gain access to a data. It takes a lot of time at the moment. So all of this is in that attempt to reduce the time for researchers to gain access so they can get going with their research and innovation projects fairly quickly. And equally, as Taryn said, for the cohort discovery, she mentioned that it's really important we have the data OMOPed. That's because when a researcher comes in and wants to use data across multiple SDEs, it's really important we have a common data model. So there was a lot of discussion around that common data model, and OMOP was, finalized as the common data model that all SDEs will follow, so that a researcher can follow through their same research question on multiple SDEs without having to recreate their scripts based on, what data we hold. So that's really the intention of, using OMOP as a common data model. And that's something that London Data Service team are, helping us deliver, where, as the data gets ingested into the London Data Service, the London Data Service team will have a common data model, but they will also have a OMOP data model for research use case. Thanks, Darren. Anything else, Darren, that you want to call out before we move to the next one?
No, I think that's all for now, Kavitha.
Thank you. Thanks, Darren. I know it's a bit of a short notice, but thanks so much for
That's fine.
making time. So any questions from anyone on that? Right. If you can't, think of anything, if you think of anything later, pop it in the chat and I will pick up. But Rachel, are you
Yep.
ready to
There we
start?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So today I'll be showing you through the cancer screening dashboard. So we've got one for bowel screening and one for cervical screening. Before I go in and show you those dashboards, just a little bit of background to these. So these dashboards have been developed for the use case for ICS to be able to see, identify potential inequalities across the system, where screening uptake isn't as high as hoped to be. It's been closely worked with RM partners to build this in line with the national reporting requirements as well. So this allowed us to, from a North West London point of view, to provide an aggregate version of the screening uptake for these two cancer screening areas, and able to drill down and have a look at the uptake in lots of different ways. Both dashboards look fairly similar. So once I've been through it, I'm going to go through the bowel screening first in a little bit more detail to the cervical screening dashboard. And that's really because they both work in very similar ways. Just a difference between the cohorts, really, but we'll see that as we go. Please do pop information or questions in the chat, or put your hands up, and I'll be happy to answer your questions as we go along. So, okay, this is the bowel screening dashboard. And we start here looking at the screening summary. We have a little bit of information regarding the cohort that's included within this screening. And then we break down to say, after ICS level, how many would be in the cohort who are eligible for screening, who are screened and who aren't screened, and the percentage to that. And then a obvious piece of text in bright red on here, showing the what the expected threshold should be, and that's for North West London. Below this area, we break down the screening uptake by borough, an overall North West London percentage, and then how many practices are meeting the different percentage uptakes bands that have been agreed. So we've got less than 50%, number of practices between 50 and 60% screened, and then the number of practices over 60%. But breakdown by age band, breakdown by gender and deprivation. And then on the right-hand side, this gives us a breakdown by PCN and practice. And this is quite important because a lot of the work that's done at the ICS level is then disseminated to a borough and then PCN level in order to be able to drill down a little bit further and see where there are areas for potential improvements. On this practice by practice bar chart, we can also see we've got two lines here. We've got the London screened percentage and also the North West London average as well. So both of those lines there, so we can see practice by practice who are achieving more than the London or North West London averages, and those below those averages too. As per the other dashboards I've been showing you, we'll see these filters at the top, which should start to look a little bit familiar to those other dashboards. We can filter by borough, particularly by PCN practice. We've got if they're known to any of the acute providers, so have they got ongoing care currently with an acute provider, so we might want to know all the patients in that area. Also, we've got gender, age band, age, deprivation and ethnicity. Mark, answer to your question, the source of this data is GP data, and it's all through the coding that goes either directly from the practice results or from the, in bowel screenings cases, it's from the bowel screening service to the practice, it gets coded separately and then comes into the dashboard. The next dashboard, of course, is then a breakdown of this cohort by demographics. So we can see here, we're looking a little bit more into some of the potential inequality areas. So we can, if we take deprivation as the example, 1 being our most deprived area and 10 being the less deprived area, we can see what the uptake for screened is in this green colour here. And then the not screened is this sort of orange colour on the right hand side. If we want to identify that we've got a particular area of when we look at this, we can see our least deprived areas also have a lower uptake of being screened. If I take the first decile, we can see there, sorry, I didn't mean to click on that. We can see there when we hover over it, we've got the tooltip there that provides us a little bit more information about how many individuals there are of that population. If I want to filter that down to that deprivation, I can use the filter at the top just to look at all this information to relate to that deprived area. And then we can see those who also have particular long-term conditions. We've got the ethnicity summary breakdown, the detail ethnicity, age bands, age groups, and then gender split at the bottom there. Clear that filter. One of the key requirements for these dashboards was to be able to view the change over time. So this trends over time dashboard allows the user to look at the last 12 months worth of data to see whether there is an increase or decrease of the uptake for that cancer that cancer screening dashboard uptake. I'm going to select a PCN, a couple of PCNs at random, apply that to the dashboard to see that the dashboard changes as we go along. You can also start to apply some additional filters, and you can see this all changes as we start to add on more and more filters. The final dashboard in here is the export data. So one of the key requirements was to be able to export safely the information that is derived from that cohort and that coding. And by that, what I mean is as we drill down to smaller, to more and more specific areas, they might get some small numbers. So this does suppress small numbers in order to keep the information non-identifiable. It allows then at that borough, PCN and practice level to pull this out and understand how many individuals and what that uptake percentage is across their population. And this is split into 3 views. We've got by practice view, by PCN view, and by borough view. And an easy download button. So there's none of the sort of having to click here, there, and everywhere until you get the right sort of view before you download it into your Excel file. So all ready and easy to click on.
Thank you, Rachel. In terms of the filters, as Rachel said, I think the filters you will start recognizing now. One of the filter that we are discussing and about to incorporate into all of the dashboard is the INT. With the establishment of the integrated neighborhood teams, we are grouping the practices to integrated neighborhood teams, and that will be a filter that will start to apply in all of the dashboards we have showed you over the last few months. And we are getting that configuration for Northwest London, at least at this point in time. Will be great to understand if LDS are looking at those reference tables and will have an INT reference table for the whole of London. To help INTs focus on these cohorts. The second thing to call out is this dashboard has been, produced through a complete co-production exercise with our Cancer Alliance, with the clinical leads, as well as, the ICB. So quite a lot of thought and effort has gone into what should be shown, what metrics we are focusing on in order to, improve the screening rates. And finally, based on this dashboard, a number of analysis currently, happens, and we are looking to, see whether we can bring those into the dashboard as well. So, for example, there was a piece of analysis that the team had to do to look at the patients who have not been screened from, a health inequalities angle. And when I say health inequalities, it's not just about the age, gender, ethnicity, and deprivation. It's starting to look at, of those who are not screened, how many are housebound? How many are smokers? How many are, overweight? And how many have got multiple long-term conditions that is to help the practice PCN boroughs to, understand the prioritization of the cohort that have not been screened to help them take some action. So we are starting to, focus more and more on how action can be taken on this dashboard rather than just presenting the data and hoping for the best. And that's why that, sort of additional analysis has been pulled out from the backing data. But once, we have reviewed that with the full stakeholder group, we will, incorporate that into the existing dashboard, into one of these views that Rachel has showed. So yeah, a few things to add, but thanks, Rachel. That was really helpful.
No problem. Thank you for that. David.
Hi. So this is my first time here. I'm David Ianson. I'm the head plan in ICB. And this is really great to see because it's really similar to something that we've had in South East London for a couple of years now. And some of my reflections in our experience of having had a very similar dashboard is we tend to see this. Well, firstly, you need to be super clear around whether you're looking at coverage or uptake. It sounds like you're looking at coverage because if it's similar to the logic we've used, you kind of have to look at. You take a kind of screening round, which for BAL is 2 years, or maybe you'll do 2.5 years, and you'll look at screening events during that time. So you'll be looking at coverage. Uptake is always challenging, because you have to know when the invitation was sent, the letter was sent, which isn't really coded in the practice record at all. So we have to be really careful between when we talk about uptake or coverage. And what we found really interesting is that this type of data tends to lend itself to sort of pointing at where the problem is. And then the kind of workflow from a practice point of view, they'll filter for their practice or their PCN, and they'll see they have a problem with, say, particular deprivation quintile or ethnicity, or maybe it's learning disability, and they'll run a search on. They have to then run the search on EMIS to get a list of NHS numbers to load into to then contact patients. So the kind of intervention is separated from this because we've got the same limitations in terms of small number suppression, etc. So what we've then landed on is that we have Ardens Manager within South East London, which essentially you can recreate these sort of views. It creates the NHS number list, which can then be loaded straight into Direct. So we've found that practices are using that more, sort of using this to inform strategy from a PCN point of view. A practice point of view, an individual workflow, they tend to be using Ardens Manager more because it's sort of a much more concise workflow for them. My last point, I got this idea from Cheshire and Merseyside, but our kind of next move from here was to look at a view of kind of like a statistical analysis of the drivers of inequity. So rather than showing differences between population groups, when we do a chi-squared approach and look at in this particular area for survival, it's deprivation is the main driver or ethnicity is the main driver. So we're pushing the strategy and the problem to them rather than them having to infer the problem by looking at differences in performance. This is fantastic. And I'm really keen to kind of link up offline to kind of make sure we're looking at similar things, and we're some of the problems that we're coming across. If you've got any ideas and vice versa, this is a fantastic tool to have available.
So David, you're breaking slightly in and out, but I think I know I got most of what you said. So this dashboard, the purpose of this dashboard exactly was to give the boroughs and the PCN a view of their practice performance. So which practice is performing well, which is not performing well, so they can start to talk to the practices which needs to buck up. You can see the PCN right at the top there, Acton. Some of them have exceeded our target, some of them have not. So it gives the PCN the ability to work with the practices. So it was more from, that kind of a support and helping them move forward. And to that vein, what we also developed is to have, dedicated workforce behind this, initiative. So we have created this concept called Cancer Champions. So we have invested in resources where, there is dedicated cancer champions for each one of the borough. And those cancer champions then, start to do the, detailed work underneath. So the one Acton Town, which is like, much lower in the Acton PCN, that cancer champion will be one of the super users of this dashboard, go to that, patient level backing data to figure out where exactly their problem is, where the quick win is, and start to like, engage with those practice. So that was the whole use case and the scope of it. But your point is well made. I think what you're saying is, if this was, if this could be taken to a patient level data that can directly, go into the clinical system, then they can take action. And that is what, we had shown in some of the dashboards. So that capability definitely is there. And we have shown it with some of the other dashboards, haven't we, Rachel? Mental health
Yeah.
and in a few other dashboards. So we can like, go and display a full patient list for each one of the cohorts. So depending on each of the criteria that Rachel selected, the dashboard, changed. So it keeps like, bringing a cohort, and we can have in the export data a bit of an export patient list, and it gives a full list of patients which we can, download and upload onto the clinical system. So that's how it currently works in Northwest London. And that's the bit that we are looking to automate. And we have been discussing with both System1 and EMIS as to like, different approaches around how we can automate that, extract into the clinical system without having to download, upload, which is what practices are doing in order to get into their workflow. And there's a few options to do that. One is, EMIS have this concept called EMIS Pathway to do that, which, we are exploring. But there is also middleware providers who do this as a bit of an activity. So, there's a few ways to tackle it, and we are just appraising those different ways and the options, and identifying a bit of a use case to get the data back in, so we can evaluate and check if that meets the expectation before we do a full-fledged procurement. So that's where we are, just so you know where we are going with our roadmap. Dean.
It was only very, very quickly, Kavitha and Rachel. Obviously, from a South East London point of view, we're reviewing the dashboards with stakeholders currently and sort of gathering feedback and kind of things that might be beneficial for future development and whatever else. Do you want the feedback? So, for example, what David just provided, which I'm sure others would probably echo as a next step. Do you want that to come back through your kind of feedback route like the other one, so you've got it in the right format? Okay.
Yeah, that would be quite helpful, Dean, because depending on the feedback, some of it could be quick, some of it could be a little bit like, lengthier process.
Yeah.
And that would help us, establish a bit of a roadmap for the following year with the London team. Because we have our own ideas on like where we could go. But, I want, some of your thoughts also to come into play. So again, it's all our like ideas about where we want this to go rather than just a Northwest London idea. Yeah.
That's fine. So I'll make sure that David's connected up with Bruno, who's my business analyst, who's coordinating the feedback and stuff, so that David can offer some of those comments back to you formally through the route that you want them, and then we can make sure it's fed into your roadmap.
Yeah. In a way, Dean, you have, helpfully kept us briefed on where Southeast London is going. So I feel at least, you guys are doing a fantastic job of bringing a group together and reviewing. I'm wanting to hear from the other ICSs where they are going, because it may be that, we need to provide them with a bit more like information, etc. So that's another reason for asking, so that, if they need any more support, we can provide that support to help them review these products and give feedback. Oh, Rachel,
I'll just wrap up very quickly. Yeah. So just
Rachel, sorry to interrupt you, and apologies all, I do need to drop off to join a national call, which has come at short notice. So I'm going to leave, Rachel to like do the next one and wrap up. So thanks, Rachel. I'll leave at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, just to finish off, obviously I've moved on to showing you the cervical screening. It does look very similar, as you can see. All the rest of the tabs are going to be very similar dashboards as well. The only addition that we have from the bowel screening is the screening cohorts that are available here. So there's three groupings. There's under 30s, which is actually the 26 to 30. 26 to 29 group, then 30 to 49, and 50 to 64. So there's a recent development, as originally it was 26 to 49, but the ICS have, and those cancer champions that we've mentioned before, are breaking down their work further into another age group. So 3 groups under the different screening cohorts. Apart from that, it's all very similar across the dashboards. They'll all look very much the same. And for that reason, we have just the one user guide for bowel and cervical screening, which I'll send out the link to this afterwards. This will provide you some further information about how this information is brought together, what the example use cases are for this dashboard, different data sources, etc., all being pulled through, for this dashboard. And I will also, in that email out to you all after today's meeting, I'll send you the link to the demonstration video as well, which is available on the WYSIC YouTube channel. So you can all take a look at that too. So just to finish off, as Kavitha was mentioning there, but I will just use a couple of minutes here at the end. We have now shown I think 6 sets of dashboards across the last few London Analytics show and tell sessions, and we have sent out a feedback form for each ICB to organise and arrange some feedback sessions through your ICS and your ICB, send them back to us. Next meeting, we would like to review that feedback. As Dean mentioned to us just there, South East London have done a bit, and they've got some sessions organised to get that feedback across these different dashboards. So thank you, Dean. That's going to be really helpful. For the other ICBs, if you've got any questions or you'd like to discuss with me or Kavitha separately about how to take this approach forwards, please do get in touch so we can have a call or an email conversation with you in advance of the next meeting. But yes, really, we would like to utilise some of the time in the next meeting to go around the room and gather some feedback, and also collect those feedback forms so that we can work it into the pipeline moving forwards. Anybody's got any questions on any of that? Okay, just a final then, another request just for the next meeting. If there's any other topics that you would like to be seen at these show and tells, please again do get in touch. I'll put the LAP support email address in the chat again. It does go out frequently, but just in case for anybody new and you haven't got it, I'll put it in the chat here. So do feel free to contact this email address. We'll answer your questions, your queries, and take any topic suggestions forward for the next meeting. Other than that, then, if there's no questions, I shall let you all go with a whole 9 minutes to spare today. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.